Welcome back to the GeoInsight, your channel for in-depth analysis on global and geopolitical developments. Today, we're diving deep into a story making waves in Washington and far beyond. Former President Donald Trump's proposal for a multi-billion-dollar bailout for U.S. farmers. Why did this happen? What are the bigger forces at play? And what does it really mean for America and the world? Stick around, because by the end, you'll have the big picture and insights you won't hear elsewhere. Let's start with what's grabbed headlines. Reports have confirmed that former President Donald Trump is considering a bailout of at least $10 billion for U.S. farmers. This move, under discussion for months, is intended to support American agriculture as trade tensions and tariffs disrupt global markets. But what's driving this? Is it really all about helping the hardworking farmer? Or is there a more complicated game at play? To understand this bailout, we need to rewind to the larger story. American farmers have been feeling the heat not just from fierce global competition, but especially from tariffs and trade wars. In 2018, when then President Trump initiated sweeping tariffs on Chinese goods, China hit back by imposing tariffs on American soybeans, pork, and other farm exports. That tit-for-tat escalated fast, and suddenly, U.S. farmers who once shipped massive harvests overseas faced plummeting demand and falling prices. The pain was real. Reports detail farm bankruptcies, falling incomes, and anxiety across America's heartland. This was no isolated problem. Agriculture employs millions and underpins entire rural economies. So, what's actually being considered? According to the Wall Street Journal and multiple news sources, Trump's team is exploring using tariff revenue collected from duties on Chinese imports, a fund that has accumulated billions to finance targeted aid to U.S. farmers. Here's the plan in broad strokes. The U.S. government would take tariffs collected from Chinese imports, using the Commodity Credit Corporation, a New Deal-era agency already used for farm aid. They'd distribute payments directly to affected farmers. The bailout would exceed $10 billion, aiming to offset losses farmers suffered as a direct result of the trade war and tariffs. But the plan is facing scrutiny. Is this really a solution, or just a band-aid? And what are the hidden costs? Timing, as always in politics, is everything. Farmers are a key voting bloc, especially in crucial swing states. Although the initial tariffs were presented as a tough-on-China strategy, the backlash in rural America has been severe. By offering significant aid, Trump's camp might be hoping to shore up political support ahead of the next election cycle. And there's something strategic going on. Using funds generated from tariffs to help the very people hurt by those tariffs allows the administration to argue that America is winning by both standing up to China and protecting domestic industry. But the numbers don't lie. Many economists argue that tariffs are ultimately paid by American importers and consumers, not China. So, is this policy really helping, or just shifting the burden from one group of Americans to another? Let's get technical for a second. Tariffs are essentially taxes on imported goods. When the U.S. government imposed tariffs on billions worth of Chinese products, the idea was to pressure China into trade concessions. But businesses importing these goods usually pass those higher costs onto American consumers. The money collected from American companies is pooled into the U.S. Treasury. Now, Trump is proposing to redirect some of that revenue back to farmers who lost markets due to China's retaliation. At first glance, it feels like poetic justice, but critics say it is more like robbing Peter to pay Paul. And there's another layer. The Commodity Credit Corporation, CCC. The CCC has a $30 billion borrowing limit. Previous farm aid packages like those in 2018 and 2019 already used CCC funds to issue billions to farmers during earlier phases of the China trade war. Is this sustainable? Some budget watchdogs warn that dipping repeatedly into this fund creates longer-term distortions and risks. Let's get honest. Not all farmers are affected equally. Soybean, pork, and dairy producers were hit hardest by China's retaliatory tariffs. Large, commercial farms typically get the biggest bailouts since payment amounts are often based on production. Smaller and mid-sized family farms, especially those already struggling, don't always see as much benefit. And the package rarely helps farm laborers or rural communities facing broader economic disruption. Critics argue that bailouts often favor the largest, most politically connected farms, widens inequality, and doesn't offer a true fix for systemic vulnerabilities in agriculture. Meanwhile, U.S. allies and trade partners are watching. Bailouts may violate WTO rules on fair trade, possibly inviting future trade disputes. This brings us to a crucial question. Are the tariffs themselves working at all? Analysis from both liberal and conservative policy organizations indicates that tariffs have not led to major changes in China's trade practices so far. U.S. consumers and businesses bear much of the cost seen in higher prices for everything from electronics to farm equipment. China, meanwhile, has increased tariffs on U.S. products, shifted purchases to other countries, like Brazil for soybeans, and developed alternative supply chains. Instead of pushing China to reform, some say the tariffs have backfired, damaging American farmers and manufacturing more than their intended target. The need for a multi-billion-dollar bailout is itself an admission that the current strategy is hurting at home. Of course, this isn't just a domestic issue. What happens on U.S. farms often ripples across the globe. America is the world's largest agricultural exporter. When the U.S. loses market share, others, like Brazil, Argentina, Ukraine, and Australia, rush in. This shift is not always reversible. Once buyers like China switch agri-suppliers, it can take years to win them back. Global commodity markets become more volatile. Prices for soybeans, pork, and corn jump unpredictably, affecting food security, farmers, and consumers worldwide. There's also a geopolitical cost. U.S. trade policy under Trump signaled a shift toward economic nationalism, prompting rivals and even allies to reconsider long-standing trade relationships and supply chain strategies. Trump's proposal is still in the idea stage, but this isn't the first time such bailouts have been rolled out. Past aid packages in 2018 to 2019 provided nearly $28 billion to farmers as a result of the U.S.-China trade war. But experts warn that continued reliance on tariffs and bailouts can weaken U.S. leverage over time. If other nations grow distrustful of the U.S. as a trading partner, they may create alliances and systems that sidestep American dominance. Meanwhile, many in Congress are debating whether new bailouts are the best use of public money, raising concerns about accountability, transparency, and long-term agricultural competitiveness. So, what does this all mean for you and for America's role in the world? Here are the key takeaways. 1. The bailout is an admission that the U.S.-China trade war has caused serious pain at home, especially for farmers. 2. Tariffs are complicated tools. While they can pressure rivals, the costs often boomerang back onto domestic businesses and consumers. 3. Bailouts can help in the short term, but don't fix underlying problems like market access, infrastructure, or growing global competition. 4. The world is watching. Which direction America goes in trade and support for its industries has a domino effect on global markets and geopolitics. That's all for today's report. Do you think the proposed $10 billion farmer bailout is the right move? Is this smart policy or a political gambit? What would you do if you were in charge? Let us know your thoughts and questions in the comments down below. We read every one. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the GeoInsight for more deep dives on world events that matter.